Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are taking a seriously fascinating journey into the natural world to uncover exactly how different animals ensure their species actually continues to thrive on Earth. I mean, from the absolute tiniest insects to the largest birds, survival is a high-stakes game out there. And as you'll see, nature has engineered some truly incredible, mind-blowing strategies to keep life moving forward. Okay, let's dive right into this by asking a pretty foundational question. While it's super obvious that a mammal, a bird, and an insect are vastly different creatures, do they all bring new life into the world in the same way? Well, the short answer is absolutely not. The reproductive strategies they use actually tell us everything about how life adapts to totally different environments.
At its core, we're talking about reproduction, right? The fundamental biological imperative for all living things to produce offspring. Because without it, a species literally just ceases to exist. But while the end goal is always exactly the same, the evolutionary paths animals have taken to get there are wonderfully, wildly varied.
To really wrap our heads around this, we can divide the animal kingdom into two main reproductive tracks. In one camp, we have animals that give live birth, and in the other camp, we have the vast majority of creatures on Earth, the ones that rely on laying eggs. These two distinct strategies dictate an animal's entire early development.
Let's start with Section 1, mammals, just like us.
So, this category is definitely the most familiar to us, since it encompasses everything from wild predators to, well, you and me. The absolutely crucial point here is their strategy of high investment. Mammal babies grow safely tucked away inside their mother's womb. When they're born, they're completely dependent, feeding exclusively on milk. Basically, they just look like miniature versions of their parents and take their time growing up slowly.
Which brings us to Section 2, the great egg layers.
For reptiles, amphibians, and birds, life begins completely outside the mother's body. Now, what's really interesting about this is just how perfect an egg actually is. It is literally a self-contained life support system. Inside that hard, protective shell, you've got the growing embryo sitting right next to the yellow yolk, which is basically nature's packed lunch. It provides all the nourishment the baby needs. Surrounded by the white albumin, the egg has absolutely everything required for the baby to develop before it ever even sees the outside world.
And get this. Eggs can come in some pretty staggering sizes. The biggest egg in the entire world belongs to the ostrich, and it weighs in at an incredible 1.7 kilograms. No way, right?
To put that massive size into a slightly more relatable, kitchen-friendly perspective, a single 1.7 kilogram ostrich egg contains enough volume to make 12 big omelets. It is just a colossal amount of energy and nutrients packed into one single shell.
But, an egg can't just sit out in the cold. It requires warmth to trigger that development, leading up to the big moment the baby breaks the shell, a process we call hatching. Birds have to actively incubate their eggs. The parents will actually sit on them to keep them warm until the chick is completely formed. Reptiles like snakes, lizards, and tortoises, though, they take a much more hands-off approach. They just lay their eggs and rely entirely on the natural warmth of the sun to hatch them.
Moving on to Section 3. Shape-shifting through metamorphosis.
While birds and reptiles hatch looking pretty much like their parents, insects do something wildly different. Let's look at the incredible concept of metamorphosis. Take the cockroach, for example. It goes through 3 distinct stages, from an egg to a young insect called a nymph. But here's the catch. Because the nymph doesn't have a flexible growing skeleton, it has to completely shed its old skin over and over. That's a process called molting, and it does this until it finally becomes an adult. Grasshoppers follow this exact same path. Other insects, like the butterfly and the silk moth, well, they take this a step further with 4 totally dramatic stages. The egg hatches into a larva, which we know as a caterpillar, and its sole job in life is just to eat and grow as fast as possible. Once it's big enough, it creates a pupa, or a cocoon. Inside that resting stage, this unbelievable biological transformation goes down, eventually revealing a fully formed adult butterfly. The whole shebang, all of these drastic changes together, is what we call metamorphosis. And the coolest part? This isn't just something you have to read about online. You can actually witness this firsthand. If you collect a few caterpillars during the rainy season, put them in a shoebox with some fresh leaves, and poke some small holes for air and light, you can literally watch the magic happen. Leave them alone for a week, they'll hit their pupa stage. Give it another week or two, and bam! Beautiful butterflies will emerge right before your eyes. And this brilliantly illustrates that metamorphosis isn't just an insect thing. Amphibians do it too, and their transformation is honestly just as extreme. Frogs lay their eggs in these large, jelly-like clusters called spawn. What hatches out is a tadpole. It's this tiny fish-like little guy that swims in the water with fins, breathes only through gills, and basically eats constantly. But through metamorphosis, it slowly develops actual limbs and lungs. The final result, an adult frog that can hang out on land, breathing through its newly formed lungs and its moist skin. It is a complete environmental and physical shapeshift.
Now, aquatic animals like fish also go through specific growth stages, though admittedly it's a bit less dramatic than a frog's whole glow-up. Fish lay eggs, and when the tiny hatchlings pop out, they're called fry. These incredibly small fry grow into a slightly larger stage known as fingerlings, which will eventually bulk up into fully grown adult fish. All right, let's look at Section 4, the parental care divide.
The second a baby actually arrives in the world, the true survival stakes begin, and it reveals this massive divide in the animal kingdom. On the high care side of things, we have mammals and birds, parents that fiercely protect and feed their young for a really long time. On the no care extreme, you've got fish, frogs, and most insects. For them, parenting basically begins and ends with finding a moderately safe spot to drop their eggs before just completely swimming or flying away. But nature loves a good plot twist. Take the fearsome crocodile. You'd probably expect them to be on the no-care list right alongside other reptiles like lizards, right? Actually, crocodile mothers exhibit incredibly fierce, protective maternal care. They lay their eggs in the soil, carefully cover them up, and once they hatch, the mother gently picks the tiny babies up in her massive, terrifying jaws, carries them to the water, and vigorously guards them for months. So what does this all mean for the animals on the no-care list? The fish, the frogs, the insects? Well, the harsh reality is that it's extremely dangerous. Because the parents pay absolutely zero attention to the eggs once they're laid, a huge number of those eggs, and the babies that hatch from them, are just simply eaten up by other animals. It's entirely a numbers game. They lay hundreds or literally thousands of eggs, just hoping a tiny fraction might make it to adulthood.
Which brings us to a really thought-provoking conclusion. We've seen mammals carefully raising single infants, birds tirelessly feeding chicks in a nest, and frogs abandoning thousands of eggs to the mercy of a pond. So, which strategy is actually best for survival? Fierce parental protection, or laying 1,000 eggs and just hoping for the best? Well, nature proves that both methods work, for sure. Each is perfectly adapted to the unique journey of life for that specific species. Kind of leaves you wondering what other incredible, bizarre survival strategies are hiding out there in the wild, doesn't it? Thanks for exploring the science of survival with me in this explainer.